I've seen $1 million companies jump to $10 million in less than a year, and $10 million companies hit 25 in less than 2 years with one great idea. Now, if you're like most business people, you've got one freaking great idea every 12 seconds. But real growth, whether it's in life or in business, comes when you know how to filter through the ideas that are actually distractions and clearly see the ones that can move the needle in a big way. So I'm really looking forward to today's show because we're joined by somebody who I consider one of the best in the world at this. He helps companies to understand the difference between $1 million ideas and $1 billion ideas, and ideas that pretty much should just be put on the side so that you could finally grow. We're joined today by Ron Lynch, who's helped brands like GoPro and SC Johnson and Valvoline and Rug Doctor and Johnson & Johnson and the Hunter Fan Company and a whole bunch more. He's helped them to grow. And in some cases, he's helped them to actually become a household name, like GoPro, who went from around $600,000 a year in sales to $600 million. Imagine having a $600,000 a year company and talking to somebody and them helping you go from there to $6 million. One great idea changes everything. And every day we're literally one great idea away from reaching the next level in our lives. But that one great idea is surrounded by what? Like 127 other ideas that also look great, literally are distracting us from staying on the path that we need to be on. And by the way, I didn't even scratch the surface about what Ron has done and what he's accomplished, because I know that he's a humble guy. You'll see that when we start talking to him. But you should know that he's a true Renaissance man, at least in my eyes. He's grown businesses. He holds over 40 patents. He's produced over 400 direct response TV commercials. He's brought in over $5.5 billion in direct sales. He's also directed films like The Truth About RFK Jr. And he's an investor. He's a philanthropist. And what I respect most about him is that he is a rock solid family man. And I've had the pleasure of knowing him for, I don't know, probably 15 years at this point. I sat on the board of directors with him of a company. I've shared meals with him. I've shared deep conversations that have literally made me think differently about my life. So, brother, I'm honored you're here. And I'd like to start, if it's okay with you, by talking about how you grow companies. But in order to do that, in order for everybody to kind of understand and appreciate that, I think we have to take a step back and talk about how young Ron got into writing and producing movies, because that creativity, I think, seems to be kind of the foundation to everything you do.
Yeah, thanks. I feel a little bit like, was it Mel Brooks' 1,000-Year-Old Man when I hear the description of me? I'll be 60 this year, and I do look back and I go, how did this all happen? Because there was not a straight path. I wasn't a person that went to Yale and then got hired by a firm and then off to the races. That was not. My first job was at 13 and a half years old. I worked in an IHOP, and I was a busboy and worked my way up to cook. And my second job, I was in a grocery store and couldn't wait to get the heck out of it. But I ended up staying in the grocery business till I was 30. And that's when after 30 is when my production career really took off. But while I was still in the grocery business, I was a grocery checker, and I got the opportunity to be in a film. I went to an audition that Robert Altman was directing a film in the Pacific Northwest, and I got a lead role in this film where I was playing opposite Jeff Daniels and Peter Gallagher and Eric Bogosian and these kind of famous character actors. And I got a SAG card. And this is something that people, move to Hollywood and hope to get. And I was just working. One day I was working in a grocery store in Seattle, and the next day I had a SAG card. And in the late 80s, they were making a lot of movies in Seattle. So I was getting a lot of bit parts in films where I got to act opposite Shirley MacLaine or River Phoenix or Jeff Bridges. And I got to be on a lot of film sets, and I learned how films were made. And I would do that, and then I'd go back to my job at the grocery store. There's just kind of this weird kind of vacillation between those two, and I was going to college at the same time. And I was on a set, and we were in Union Station in Seattle, and I was standing next to Jeff Bridges at about 7 a.m, and I said to him, I said, how do I get to go from my chair as no-name actor with a line in a movie to being in your chair? And he, in very great the dude style, said, super easy, man. Just do what I did. Do what my brother did. Make sure your dad's Lloyd Bridges. And I laughed. I was like, okay, I get it. And he goes, write, because writers will always work in Hollywood. If you can write, you'll work. And there probably wasn't a more poisonous thing I'd ever heard in my life. It was like, oh, the thing I would hate to do the most is write. But I had a pretty good Shakespeare teacher at the University of Washington. And so I started writing. And one of my first principles, and we can talk more about this, is take an action first. There's a lot of people that are waiting for an opportunity, and opportunities come after actions, in my opinion. That I had to write 2 movies to get the opportunity. And the way that worked was I had a customer in that grocery store who was on an afternoon talk show as a host. And I stopped her and I asked her, do you know anybody in Hollywood? I've written 2 screenplays. And she said, well, bring them into the store. So I went to Kinko's and printed them off for $17 and put them in a bag and set them under my check stand. And she came through a few days later and handed them to her. Her name was Dana Middleton. And she said, well, how did you know to ask me to do this, to read these? It's like 1988 or 89. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. She goes, well, my sister's Kathleen Kennedy. And I said, I don't know who that is, because there was no internet back then. She goes, she's Steven Spielberg's producer. She's made all of his movies with him. I'm like, oh, wow. 2 weeks later, I was on the phone with Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy pacing in my basement apartment of my grammar school music teacher's house where I was renting. And that's kind of where, between that movie thing and that, it was like God said, okay, you're going to do this. And that's kind of where that started, was that understanding how films were made, films were written, but then sticking around the grocery business for 10 more years and eventually becoming a CEO and understanding business and P&Ls and hiring and margins and sourcing of product and rents and machinery and equipment and depreciation and all the things you have to have that P&L knowledge. And those eventually got put together, and I transferred into an advertising. So it's a long-winded answer, but that's how it happened.
No. That was a great answer, because I think that mindset inside of you, like all those pieces needed to be built up for you to be able to then go into a company or to build a company. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you bring the story into the company. Like, you go in and you look at it through that set of eyes, which is very anal with the P&Ls, but also extremely creative with your film writing experience. And you're able to create a story that now makes prospects engaged, employees engaged, and investors engaged.
It's true. And I'll tell you, the first story that you have to understand is not the advertising story that you're going to tell the consumer. It's the movie of the company succeeding. I have to be able to see that in my eyes. So I'm probably one of the few people that works in the quote unquote ad or marketing business that gets together with a company, and their first question is, what is your margin? Who are you selling to? What are your returns? What's your lead time? What's your sources? How much inventory is in the warehouse? Most advertising people go right to the woo of how do we sell more. But I know if there's not an economic engine, and if I know what the constraints are, one of the great things about creativity, whether it's on the purely story creative movie side or if it's business, is creativity happens in constraint. If I tell you to escape from a room, escape from prison, I got to put you in a prison first. I can't put you in the middle of the desert. I need the constraints to get creative. And the constraints of understanding what the constraints of the business are from a financial perspective and a flow perspective are usually the first. And then the second is, who are you selling it to? And then the third is, who are you not selling to? And that's usually, for me, where the opportunity is a person became successful or a company became successful because it learned to tap into a vein of customers, and like a mosquito, it's just sucking the blood out of that as much as possible. And they don't realize there's 6 more veins that are as large or larger that are untapped because they found success in the first vein. And they become a slave to their previous success.
It's a great analogy. And by the way, before you keep going, I just need to take a step back and talk about something that you just said. when I go into a company, whether it's as an owner, partner, advisor, or investor, one of the first things that I do is I want to know who's buying companies like this. Like, not necessarily that every company needs to be sold, but a single company that I'm part of needs to be built to be able to be sold, because it makes it so much more effective. The company is more streamlined, and they're focused on the right things, not immediate growth, but sustainable growth. So I always want to know who are the people in your industry, not only that are buying companies like yours, but that are paying the number that you would want in order to exit the company. That's who we're going to be building this for, basically. And that's not across the board, but that's a general assumption in the beginning. What you just said kind of blew my mind, because it's having that list of who we're not selling it to, the company itself, not just the product. I know you were talking product also, but the company itself. That makes the whole thing so much more effective. Who's our target demographic and who's not our target demographic it saves us so much on cost when it comes to advertising.
We get into business through innovation in America, and we become merchants. And that's the way everybody does it. I've got a better idea. I'm going to build a better thing. And we get enraptured in the business of selling our thing. And what we tend to forget is that the people that are playing the game from the other direction, the people that have the large funds that are doing large scale things that we dream of doing, they're not playing a products game, they're playing a distribution network game. Distribution is actually what you're building when you're selling a product. And it's very easy to forget, because all you're focused on is selling more product. And I tend to embed that in my initial thinking of, true, it's either exit or sale, and I've mentioned to you this offline, Jorge Limon is one of the people I look at, who started InBev and 3G Capital with Buffett. And he was an accountant that came from Harvard and grew up in Brazil as his family escaped Europe in World War II. But InBev now owns 60% of the world's powerful beer brands. And listening to him talk was just increasing distribution network and streamlining distribution of, there's a Budweiser truck and there's a Stella truck and there's a St. Pauli girl truck going to the grocery store to drop 20 cases off at every store. I'm going to put all of those on each one of those trucks, and the trucks are going to go less places. And there was tremendous profit in saving that distribution network step. And that's how InBev did what they did. And so when I go into a company, I'm like, okay, we're doing something that is a step in a process. And ultimately, the process is building distribution network, because if we do that correctly, we can either exit to someone with a larger distribution network, or we can drop other products into this distribution network and increase our volume and profitability with customers we've already paid for. So those are, which, if you told me when I was flipping pancakes at the IHOP that sentence would have, or idea would ever come out of my mouth, that tells you how much aggravation I had to go through so many years, because it's not smart. It's just awareness. Now I just understand what the game is.
You know what? I think that might be the definition of smart. It's the definition of smart really is awareness, rather than knowing what other people don't know sometimes. So I'd like to, I'm going to ask you to tell a story, but I'd like to talk about what happens when you go into a company. So let's make believe you're going into a company, because I know that you have a general process. And by the way, I'll preface this by saying, I also know that no company is the same. When you go into a company, just like if I go into a company, it's never like let's go through chapter 1 first, pull out the workbook. It's, hey, let's talk and figure this out. And then we're going to figure out exactly where you are and how to get to the exact next step and how to make that a sustainable, predictable growth curve. So I want to talk about what happens when you walk into a company. But the story I'd like you to tell, if it's okay with you, is you get approached by a lot of people with ideas. You get approached by a lot of people who want to pick your brain, just like I do. Any event that we ever speak at, there's people who just say, "Oh, Ron, let me I want to buy you dinner. I want to buy you." And I laugh because I can picture the people who have approached me at every event just to say, and they they position it as if they're doing you a favor. Come on, I'll buy lunch. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to dinner. My wife and I want to treat you to. Mm. So you have an answer for that, and your story is the coffee cup story.
My answer is, would you buy me a cup of coffee for $1,000? And they go, where's this cup of coffee coming from? I'm like, it's coming from my head. And I'm going to punitively charge you to take me to dinner or have coffee, and I'm going to give you 2 hours. But the reason I'm going to charge you $1,000 to do it is so you'll take the advice. Because if I don't charge you, you won't take it seriously. It'll just be another opinion from another guy at a bar, and you'll probably say, oh, I thought of that. Or you'll discount it, and 6 months later, after you've gotten to enough pain, you'll grab the idea and take the next step. But if you want to be more successful, I want you to start right now. So I'm going to tell you what I truly think. And out of that, I'm going to give you a document that's a few pages long that reflects what we talked about. And the idea is because I'm going to say things that you're not going to be able to remember because I have too much case study knowledge in my head for you to even know the nuances of those stories. But I'll build you a case for how you get from where you say you are to where you say you want to be. I know the path because I've seen all the paths. And so I'll charge you $1,000 for that. And people generally say yes to that, and then they succeed. But I don't really do it if it's not an ethical or moral company or product first. So the first question for me is, what are you doing?
Of course.
But once you get through that, then that's generally where my connections come from. It's $1,000 cup of coffee.
My guess is, and by the way, I don't even want to guess at this. I want you to you tell me. After saying that, what do like 90% of the people just drop off and don't want to do it?
It's probably
because they don't have the trust in their own idea.
It's probably 60, 70%, and it doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother them. But I don't know. It might even be lower. I mean, I get a lot of yeses to that because it takes a lot of.
Well, that's great.
I'll give you an example, though. So a guy I know very well, he's come back. He's had 5 different cups of coffee with me on 5 different ideas, and he's a very young entrepreneur. And he now, has kind of free license to come over to our house here in the middle of nowhere. He's a guy from San Antonio, and I live up by Austin. But he brought to me an idea that you probably go like, "This is dumb." It was a needle for filling up basketballs and balls, and he brought it after Deflategate with Tom Brady and the football. And it's a needle that registers the pressure of the ball. Exactly.
Very interesting.
So he brings this to me, and we have a conversation about it, and I tell him what to do with it, which was one of the things was paint it a very unique color so that when it's used, everybody knows what's being used. And I just stole that from Steve Jobs and the earbuds. Just like that's how we knew people had iPhones or iPods. And then I gave him a couple other tips. He turned around and he licensed the product to one of the largest sporting manufacturers. He never built one. He got a $5 million check and royalties from drawings and the idea based upon a prototype that he had made deploying. So he comes back for $1,000 cups of coffee periodically.
Yeah, smart.
And it was smart like, guy. I didn't ask for anything more than that. I just asked him to deploy the advice. I didn't say, oh, I deserve a cut of what you got. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, no, I think there's the person who just truly wants to make a dollar on other people's ideas, and then there's the people who have have reached a level of success and have a level of humbleness that truly do want to help but don't want their time wasted. So there needs to be a filtering mechanism there where you're not just, and again, I laughed before because I used to say yes to a lot of those things just because, oh, it's so nice that, I'm going to have dinner anyway. Might as well have dinner with a nice, group of people. And then the entire meal, I leave there drained because it's
you feel
hours and
being
hours.
Asked. Does my ego good to be asked?
And that's it, though. Then you're done.
I just like to up the ante and go, okay, how serious are you? Because I want the thing to actually be worth both of our time. So I think that's a good paradigm to operate from, is to how do
I
you
think
make
so too.
serious
And it's
enough to
not a
sell?
crazy number. It's not,
No.
it's not a, it's a just, are you serious? Are you serious enough to, take out $1,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So you walk into a business. Let's assume let's assume it's a business that's 7 figures and trying to get to 8. So what's your process?
I walk through. They have to teach me the business, and we do it in about an hour and a half, really fast. And it's very simple. As what was the problem you thought you were solving in the world? What is the actual problem you ended up solving? What is your innovation? What is your solution? What are the features that add up to that innovation that make it work? What are the benefits of each one of those features? Describe the audience or audiences you serve, and what are your numbers? And it takes about an hour and a half for that. Their person's talking about their child at that point. And so you get to that features and benefits list, and that's where the truth ends up. I know, and by now I know what the margin is, and I know what their pricing is. They probably are not really good at offer, because most people aren't good at offer. They've been working on an offer that works, but that doesn't mean that's the best thing they could sell. And they're really good at selling to one consumer vertical or one identity that often reflects somebody in the company, often the owner. And when I dig through that features and benefits list, I have them write with me a hierarchy of what their customers care about the most. And then I take that benefits list and I start flipping it around and going, well, okay, but aren't there people that want this benefit and that benefit and that? Because you're going to have 20 benefits for your product, and you're probably focusing on 3, and you're missing the market with the other 17. And as we talk about the difference between $1 million and $1 billion idea, this is what emerges as the numbers become larger. The trick to making the numbers become larger is making sure the audience is advertising on your behalf. Marketing is the dialogue that the world is having about you, that you create. Advertising is fishing for customers. But if we do a good job with marketing, then when we go into these new verticals, our customers become our salespeople. Because a customer recommendation, one of the key questions I ask is, what's your ideal cost of acquisition, customer acquisition? And people say, oh, it's $18, it's $22, it's $400, it's $8,000. That's if we could consistently get customers at $142, we'd be killing it. And I'm like, I appreciate that, but you're wrong. And that's usually what stops the room, is when I say that. Now, in this conversation, by the way, when I go into a company, I want the CFO in the room, because I don't want to leave the room and have somebody torpedo what we talked about over something they don't understand over money. So I want the CFO in the room, I want the CMO in the room, I want the COO in the room, and I want the CEO in the room. If you've got that many C's in the building, I want them there with me during this meeting, so that we have a cohesive exploration and everybody understands why we got to where we got. Because otherwise, we're going to get derailed immediately in the second step by the CFO goes, oh, we can't afford that next quarter. We'll do that in the quarter after, or we'll do that next year. We can't do that. Whatever plan we come up with is going to be something that you have to do now for your own survival, typically, or for your own growth. So in those benefit lists, we find things that will make the customer take the product in, purchase it, find happiness in that, and then go talk about it and get your cost of acquisition down to 0. I can't tell you what Nike's cost of acquisition is. Nobody can. But I can tell you what Weight Watchers is, because it's a very specific niche, very specific
Yeah.
product, very specific consumer, very specific cost and lifetime value. We don't know what it is for Coca-Cola or Nike or the big ones. We don't know what it is for Apple anymore.
Why? Because they own so many SKUs?
Because they own so many customers. Then we don't.
The customer base, not the number of
The customer
products.
base is so large and the product is so widely adapted. They're now spending advertising dollars on they don't know where their customer comes from. So that's why they have to buy stadiums.
Love your definition of marketing. The dialogue people are having about you. What did you say? Dialogue people are having about you behind their back?
Yeah, it's a conversation that your customers are having about you, but you get to seed it in your, if you do a good job in your marketing, advertising, and delivering, they're going to talk about you. That's the water cooler talk of you got to get a GoPro because.
Yeah, that's magic. Hey, so the list that you gave us before, problem, innovation, solution, features, benefits, audience, numbers, I'm sure that's just off the top of your head. I'm sure you go all over the place when you're actually sitting down and talking with the C-suite or whoever's in the meeting. But the similarities that popped up in my head are when we're looking to acquire companies, or when companies are coming to us for funding, we look at what the multiple is in the industry, and then we look at it from a PE standpoint, private equity standpoint, or from a VC standpoint, and those are very aligned with our list, with the exception of, I would add, I need to be able to see the number of traffic sources, because no company's worth anything to me if they have one traffic source. And I don't care how good it is. I don't care how long. I went into a company a long time ago. It was one of the largest in their industry. It was a supplement company, and it was a male enhancement supplement company, all natural. All they did, which, by the way, I don't want to mention their name, but I'm sure you know them, because the only traffic source they had was TV ads. So we'll talk about it offline, maybe. But so I'm sure they came across your radar because that's your world. And we started talking about multiples, and started talking about how the owner could exit this. And he was so against any other traffic source. He goes, why do I need another traffic source? Like, we're doing very, very good with this. And by the way, they were doing so good with it that even if I said, well, how big is your email list? Because maybe that could be an inner traffic source. Like, maybe we could go to the people who are hitting your sites and not buying, or who are bought from you and haven't bought from you again. Like, maybe we could re-engage them. And he's like, well, listen, we have like 3 million people on our email list. I'm like, oh, that's substantial. How often do you email them? And he said, what do you mean? We email them a receipt once. We email them once. Like, we send the receipt after the sale. That's the end of it. So what you were saying, and I don't know if you were saying this while we were recording or offline when we were just BSing about business, but the fact that you get it was your mosquito analogy. The fact that you get so stuck on the one vein, like, I'm happy here, this is enough. Like, this is where we're going to put all of our efforts, without looking and saying there's 5 more veins that we need to be tapping, same amount of energy, same amount of everything, no more employees, no more, like, literally, let's just expand our thinking here. So anyway.
And it's, we'll go back in time to, here's a simple example of somebody who did a really good job with widening out incrementally. And we forget, where did Red Bull start?
The part of their marketing efforts, when they came on my radar, was when they were in the extreme games.
Right. So before that, we're making wide awake drunks at bars. They started in the college bar circuit, taking Red Bull and mixing it with vodka, and it was a drink that you'd go get a Stolies and Red Bull, and the company formatively went out and we're making wide awake drunks in the middle of the night. It was a party drink, and it didn't taste that. Like, one of the things about Red Bull is the flavor profile is not really great. It doesn't taste that good. And then but it's such a high margin. Then it was that young group. What are they not doing at night when they're getting drunk? They're doing sports in the day, and it built from there. And it went from, and we paired with them at GoPro eventually to get that audience. And a lot of GoPro events and Red Bull were now co-branded events. I mean, we're the guys who threw Felix Baumgartner out of the balloon for the Super Bowl ad. It was GoPro Red Bull. So I go, how do they start? And then how do you definitely need those tendrils out in the marketplace. And television does have a brilliant way of telegraphing to the audience that we're huge and we have a lot of money. And we did that. We did that at GoPro for Super Bowl ads, but we didn't buy Super Bowl ads the way people think they're bought. Like you think, oh, a Super Bowl ad's like $4 million or $5 million. Well, during the Super Bowl, the CBS at the time, they have local affiliates in all these cities, and they get Super Bowl time because the FCC has this rule that the local affiliate. And so when you're watching the Super Bowl, you see a news like tonight after the Super Bowl, watch our local news and blah, blah. Well, that's unsold airtime. So we went to 13 markets and bought all of that airtime, and we would run Super Bowl ads much, much cheaper for 60 grand per market. But you get New York, Miami, Chicago, Seattle, and the audience is watching the Super Bowl and sees a GoPro ad, and then they see 3, and they're like, holy smokes, GoPro bought 3 ads. The company's gigantic. And our whole budget for the first Super Bowl was $380,000.
Ron, I was associated with multiple companies who did something similar during COVID, because COVID, nobody was buying. Everybody who had advertising space was crying because all of their customers who were buying ad space from them was like, well, we can't advertise right now. We can't get people into our restaurants right now. We can't have a restaurant. We can't get them into our gyms. We can't get them here. Can't get them there. So all these people were pulling out. So they had so much remnant space that they were literally letting it go for pennies on the dollar. They didn't want to. The salespeople talked a big game until we're like, no problem. Like this, here's our price. Here's what we'll pay. Call me when you're ready. And that was it. And we just kept getting call after call after call.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to understand the arbitrage of anything, and that those arbitrages exist in the world. You have to be able to seek them. But really kind of to get at the heart of, the difference between $1 million and $1 billion is, I think $1 million product solves a problem for somebody. It is a kitchen knife, or it is a pan, or it is a rug doctor. But $1 billion idea is like a GoPro. It's identity related. It's Nike. Those are identity. If you can convince somebody that, most people will define themselves kind of like a NASCAR. They have 6 brands that they wear in life. They're a Caribou coffee drinking, Tough Mudder, Subaru driving. Like you get this, and that's how people they build their character now with brands. I'm a North Face person, or like this in your life, and you see this in people. Even within our executive community, you said I wouldn't wear that. There's a lot of I wouldn't wear that because that's not
Absolutely.
classy enough. I got to wear this because I got to exude class, wealth, and stature. So we stick to those brands that exude wealth, class, and stature. And even we frown upon somebody who might go the other direction. But Jesse Itzler can do that because he's married to Sarah Blakely, and they own 2 companies, and they're multi-billionaires, so he can wear all the cowboy hats and baseball hats he wants, right? And we go, oh, okay. But if we can get someone to change their identity through our purchase, then they become our marketer and our advertiser. That's where influencer marketing became a thing. But people see themselves as influencers, and they are. What customers do we want, and how do we get them to say it's an expression of my identity, like a vehicle is, like sportswear, like a GoPro. And what we arbitraged in GoPro was the explosion of Facebook and YouTube. People were making their own commercials on our behalf.
And so I think what you said is extremely profound. But I think that there's a large population of people who will hear this and think that doesn't fit me. And I'm going to just disagree with that completely because this fits everybody. If you believe that you can't get people to cheerleader you, if you believe that you can't get your product or service to be connected with somebody's identity, I think that's a mistake. And I could be completely wrong for some people, but let's put it this way. Forget if you don't sell clothes. Forget if you don't sell jewelry. Forget if you don't sell a gadget. Think about the insurance broker. in my world, when I sit around the table with a bunch of my business friends, we talk to each other and we say, well, what CPA firm are you using? What, law firm are you using? What this, what that, what the other thing? And people around the table will feel embarrassed if they're not using like a certain level up. So there is that air of identity at the business level, at the personal level, pretty much everywhere, no matter what the product or service is that I can think of off the top of my head right now, at least.
I'll give you an example of someone specific that is in the medical space. There's a guy in Los Angeles that's a chiropractor, and he's Eastern European. He's an American, but he originally came from Eastern Europe, and his name is Dennis Colinello. And I have sat in Dennis Colinello is a friend of mine. I've sat in his office, and I have watched Bob Iger come through, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, um, Justin Timberlake. Every A-list celebrity in Hollywood goes to Dennis. He advertises nothing. He's in a nondescript building in Beverly Hills, and people pay him in cash. But if you start asking around the business world who the best chiropractor in America is, his name comes up over and over and over. And he's got hands like sausages, but he's got this magic touch. And everybody the list is unconscionable. Because of him, I ended up in Bono's house at Christmas. Like, this guy's connected to everybody, and he's the chiropractor. And if you want a chiropractor, you go to Dennis Colinello, and it's like and you've never heard his name before, but he's the guy. And there's that for trusts, there's that for law, there's that for accounting, there's that for design work. He brought Musk in to work on one of our projects. He just picks up the phone, and pretty soon we're on the phone with Elon Musk giving us advice about something. It's like, that's you're from your chiropractor. That's nuts. But that's
So then how if you're going into a company and a company's sitting there hearing this saying, gosh, man, like I want to be able to differentiate myself. I want to know, what do I do? What do I start thinking about? What path do I follow in order to begin touching people's identities, in order to begin giving the right uniqueness to my brand so that people begin talking about it when I'm not around?
You need to get outside of the echo chambers. Number one first is you have to make the responsible, mature decision that you don't know it all. You have to have someone from outside. You need somebody who does not going to tell the emperor what his clothes look like. You have to go outside, and then you have to go, well, just because it's outside, does that mean it's true? No, you have to use your common sense. But you do have to. In Austin, we have this place called the Wizard Academy, where a lot of folks in the creative space and business space go to learn things. And Roy Williams is the head of it, and he's a longtime radio advertiser. He's a brilliant guy. The property's great. But I go out there and teach every once in a while. I know these guys well, and I go, well, I'm not in wizardry anymore. I think I'm in sorcery. And the difference is I'm tapping into the source that's outside the company, and the source is connected to the audience that you're not connected to. So I need to go to that source and figure out not just the information, but the spells, because these words are spells that you cast to those people. And they typically start with a question, because the mind cannot not hear a question. If I say, can you picture the house you grew up in? Everybody watching this just pictured the house they grew up in. I had control of that. Can you picture your first pet and what was its name? Who was the first person that you were sexually attracted to in high school? I'm just running through a list of questions, but I've got complete control of your mind at this moment.
Get out of my head, Ron.
Right? And you're filling in all those blanks, but you can't not answer the question. So now, if I take that sorcery and apply it to your business and to customers that have never heard of you, I need to formulate what the questions are that make them, oh, I might have that need. Oh, I may want that innovation. Oh, I can have that innovation. If I can get you to say, stop and listen and go, oh, I have that problem, or I want that hope. It could be positive or negative. And two, there's an innovation that'll let me get there fast. And three, I can have the innovation. I've already answered three questions that make me a buyer. I don't even know what the product is or what the offer is, but I've said yes 3 times already. So I have asked the audience at that point for permission to tell them my story about what they want. And they're going to let me repeat those 3 questions in a deeper way, which is the marketing, and then put an offer at the end of it, which is the ask. And you have to be strong in your desire to ask, and they'll say yes. It's math. Percentage of them, if on that day, if you hit them with that message, they're going to say yes. Your sales go up. But if you haven't thought about the second, the third, and the fourth audience, those are just sales they're not showing up on your P&L, I guarantee you. Because you haven't
No
asked.
doubt. No doubt.
It goes back to that, the movie that with Russell Crowe, Brilliant Mind, asking the girl in the bar. And so when I sit with Johnson & Johnson or one of these large corporations, and I'm sitting in a boardroom with a bunch of marketers and business people, after 4 hours, I go, I think I understand this, and I think I can formulate some questions. One of us now has to go down to the corner bar and meet a total strange girl and ask her to step in. Who should we send? We should send you, Mr. Lynch. They want to send me. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that risk. And that's what my job is, to go run these experiments. And you have to think of what you're doing as an experiment. It's not like, oh, this isn't working. No, that experiment didn't work. We're going to line up 10 of these experiments, and 3 of them are going to work. And when they work, we're going to drill down. But you have to have that mindset.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then you have to be willing to test. I want to talk a little bit about what you were saying about the questions, because I think that's the foundation to pretty much everything when it comes to marketing, which is essential to almost every company out there. And the heart of that for us has always been trust. Like, our goal with marketing is to build trust. And it has to be trust in 3 different things. It has to be trust in the company, in the product, in the owner. So trust in the company is going to be around. They're not a fly-by-night company. Trust in the product is going to do more than whatever was promised. Trust in the owner's in this for the right reason. The owner has a good hero story. Those are the 3 levers that we can use to connect with somebody, because when you connect with them, feel like they could trust you, which is a significant help when it comes to marketing. To get to that point, it's so much easier to get to that point in all 3 of those areas when we're using questions as opposed to statements and saying, this is us. This is how great we are. These are the awards we won, which every company does. Or they have, the biggest image on their website is what? Their logo, usually. Those are the ones who don't know what the heck they're doing, because it's not developing trust with the person at all.
This is why Amazon succeeds. Is, well, 1, they eat everybody's margin. 2, they're a server company. But 3, they're the place that everybody goes to find out the truth about a product. The number 1 driver to Amazon is, I'll go to Amazon and see how people rate it. I want to see how many stars it gets on Amazon and read the actual verified buyers. So you're tapping into that. But I think there's a sequence, and the sequence does start with the problem solution nature of the first question, the exploration of benefits next. It's not features. Not, do I need something with a sharper edge? Do I need the tomato thinner? Would the pizza turn out better? So you go from the innovation to the benefits. Then you go to the promise. Then you go to a feature, 3 features that back each one of the benefits. I can give you that first benefit because of this feature. The second one because of the second feature. Oh, okay. So now I think I understand the product. Then I might go to an animation that goes, this is why it works. Because when I do an animation, you as a child learn to suspend disbelief. And if I show you a cartoon of how it works, you think you know how it works. Animation
That
is
was,
the most
yeah,
contrived thing
that,
we've ever done.
so that's a masterclass. Like if whoever's watching this reviews that 2, 3, 4, 25 times, just those last few minutes, like that gives you the step by step. And I'm glad you went to the animation, because I was going to jump in afterwards and say, as long as it builds a vision of them having already achieved their goal, or if it builds a vision of them living that new life, right, in the new body or in the new car or in the new whatever, right, whatever you're selling them, they've got to be able to visualize it, and your job is to get them to visualize it using these tools.
And so what I just did is I told you a story. Story is problem, solution, innovation, benefits, features, animation. This is how it should work. So now what I need is what you gave me, which the next step is other people say so. So now I take 6 videos of 6 customers and I cut them into one video, because I don't need to hear Goldilocks and the 3 Bears 6 times. I need to hear it once cohesively from 6 different storytellers stitched together. That subconsciously tells me they all have the exact same experience and this thing is bulletproof. Then I can meet the owner.
That's crazy.
Oh, who the hell came up with this? Meet Brian. This is Brian. He had the problem. And I'm and by the way, I live on this farm with my kids, and I'm not trying to steal anything from anybody. You can go check our reviews. I'm giving it to you. I'm really the guy that made it. I'm starting to feel pretty good about what I'm seeing. So now I'm building trust. Through this, I've just built in the last 4 minutes with you a sequence of trust building. This all sounds pretty good, and he seems like a pretty good guy, and I think I need that. Now I now have to make the audience happy with a couple of choices. There's a place you can get this right now, and it's a great deal. Or you can go here, and if you don't, you can learn more as well. Because I just need to, I need to make the marketing well super deep, but I have to put them in control of drilling. Because I don't know when they're going to make their buying decision, but I need to let them drill, and the more they're suspicious, the deeper they drill, the more compelled they become. And that's where they exit the well and purchase is going to be different for every person. I just have to construct that appropriately.
I want to go a little bit deeper on something, and I'm going to connect a story that I heard you say at one point. I'll start it by reiterating something that you said, which is words. Words are magic. Words are spells. They have the ability to profoundly, positively impact your brand, the way you're perceived in the industry, everything. They have the ability to immediately destroy it as well, right? So everybody's using words, the words that you're using, the words that you're training your prospects and your customers to use. If you understand how to get people to use the right words, they will use it, including the words that your employees use. Like, we very specifically use a vocabulary when I'm talking with my team. And slowly my team starts to use the same vocabulary when they're talking. And then the team underneath them and their department starts to, they start taking different actions because of the words that are being used. And then they start using them. And these are all positive, and they're all great words. And the example that I usually give when I'm talking to people is the lemonade stand story, which is 2 little girls have a lemonade stand on the same block. They're across the street from each other, cars driving by. One has a sign outside of its lemonade stand, says, lemonade, 10 cents a cup. The other girl has an exact same lemonade stand, slightly different sign, lemonade, made with fresh water, 10 cents. And, and then she's the one who gets it. She's the one who understood the right words to use to the right audience. You have a similar story, and it's something about macaroni and cheese, where you told a story at one point where when you use the right words and you position the same exact product in front of a slightly different audience, you can charge multiples of times more, 7 times more, 10 times more, whatever it is, same product. Like, and you could swear, if you're the customer, this macaroni and cheese tastes amazing. It's the best I ever had because I paid $70 instead of $7 or whatever the case is.
Right. And I would say the story I'm about to tell, it will become evident, is you would think it comes from an advertising wizard that understands language. I learned this very early on from a chef that understood selling. So we had a grocery store with cooking kiosks in it, which is kind of where my infomercial knowledge of cooking and, hey, we could just take these demonstrations and put them on television. But it's easy to see where that bridge is, right? My friend Chef Jacques had a restaurant in Seattle called La Tasse Van, and he would come and he would had a the restaurant in one place, and he'd come and cook in our stores to help grow our audience. And we had a this cooking kiosk, was kind of fancy kitchen in the front of the store, and it was a high-end grocery store. People would gather 4 or 5 o'clock at night when he was cooking, and he would take Berea pasta, which, we were importing this pasta from France when everybody else was using Mission macaroni at the time. It was like, you got, it's in a blue box and it's from Italy, makes it better, right? And then this cheese, and then some tomatoes, and it's penne pasta, and you'd show how to make this penne pasta with tagliatelle noodles, or Parmesan, and this certain Parmesan Reggiano that we bought that was $7 a pound, and a sliced tomato, and give everybody a sample, and a bottle of wine too, even. And so people would fill their baskets, and they would put these 4 products in, and now they had $25 worth of one meal in there. And you'd say, if you went to the restaurant, this would be $17.95 a plate. And you got 4 plates here, so it's $80, and you're only paying $22 for it. People fill it up, and they'd have the recipe card, and off they'd go. So we're standing as we finished the demo one night, and I'm just assisting him, and I'm probably 22, 23 years old. And I'm like, Chef, that was amazing. That's really cool. Pardon my French, but I'm just going to say what he said. And his voice French. He turned to me and he goes, "Honey, these fucking macaroni and cheese. We got them. Instead of buying that shit from Kraft for 44 cents a box, to buy that. We made their lives better. It's the same recipe. They got to boil the same water. They're going to go through the exact same steps as they would with Kraft macaroni and cheese. But we brought probably 6 marginal dollars of profit, of cash flow to the company by doing that. Plus, we trained them to do that consistently. When they think of macaroni and cheese, they're going to do this instead. So we moved the revenue of the store, not just for that moment, but we trained the audience. And when they serve it, they're going to go, I learned this from a chef at that grocery store. And that grocery store was only a 10,000 square foot store. And it was listed in Cosmo magazine as the greatest place in America for singles to meet each other. This little grocery store on top of Queen Anne Hill in Seattle. So
That's crazy.
It's just this, how I think it's always important. And that was a great lesson to me, was Chef Jacques was outside of the box, and he was thinking about the problem in a way we hadn't thought about the problem. And that's one of the most critical things, is to how to get outside of where you are and think about what you're doing through a different lens.
So then how do we walk somebody through the idea stage where they're evaluating whether or not an idea is, let's not talk $1 million and $1 billion ideas. Let's just say I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I've got, 12 ideas today, and they're distracting as all hell, because I know I've got 2 things that I need to get done today. Like, I'm good at what I do. I got it narrowed down to 1 or 2 things every single day that I need to nail out. Everything else is gravy. But these other ideas that I got, Ron, they could be great.
Okay. So yeah, to me, the first thing is, am I in a position to evaluate if anybody besides me wants this idea? I had somebody bring, I've had two, I'll tell you, an idiot idea and a great idea. Both we said no to for different reasons. I had a guy bring me porcelain dog dishes that were shaped like toilets because
What did he bring you?
porcelain dog dishes that were shaped like toilets because dogs like to drink out of the toilet. No, dogs don't like to drink out of the toilet. Dogs like fresh, cold water, and that's what's in your toilet. And
Exactly.
it's like that's a novelty, funny item, but I don't know that many people that would like to put a toilet next to their kitchen counter for their dog to drink out of. Because once the joke's over, it's over. Like
And
that's
then you just condition them to drink out of toilets.
well, and it's like it's funny for your guests. Like, oh, okay, is it though? It's a bad idea. Then another, but this on at the other end, Kid Rock rolled in my office one day with and he's quite a handyman, a barbecue that had flames cut out of the front of it and motorcycle stacks for the exhaust and the where the flames were cut out, you could see through and you could see the flames, and it had this grill that went up and down, and the handle was shaped like the flame that had been cut out, so the negative space. It was like, bro, how much did it cost you to build this? And he goes, I think we can make them for like $8,000. I'm like, okay, that's a $24,000 to $30,000 retail sale for a barbecue. Can't do it. There's not enough customers in the world for that. I'm sorry. You know, go home, make 6 more, and send them to people as gifts. But there's no audience. So I got to have an audience, and I got to have the humility to go, does anybody want this? Because to the psychology of Byron Katie or Daniel Amen, just because you thought of it doesn't mean it's a great idea. It's just stuff exists in your head. Then okay, let's say it really is. Then what's my MVP? What's my minimum viable product that I can test to see if there's commerce attached to this? And within the complication of that is that an easy thing to get to, or is that not an easy thing to get to? If it's an easy thing to get to, well, then pursue it and find out. But it better have marginal dollars in it. And I want to see 70% margins because I'm the producer of it, right? If I don't have 70 to 80% margins, then I'm never going to survive a retail world because I'm going to give 50% of my margin to the retailer right up front. I'm always going to have operational costs and cost of goods, and I want to throw off at least 10% in profit to make the idea viable. So there's those financial metrics have to be in place as well. And then I go, all right, then I decide out of those 10 ideas, which couples I can say yes to based on that and evaluate.
Yeah, and then the other filter that I have in my life is what would I need to stop doing in order to have the time and the mental bandwidth to do this new thing. And one of the things that I protect more than anything else in my life outside of, my family, my kids, my faith is my mental bandwidth.
Yep.
Like
Everything's energy.
that's what's that?
Everything has energy, an energy component to it. That's energy right there. Attention and energy and heart and soul.
Yeah, right. I read a good book about that recently. It was yours.
Which one was that? Presmic?
Yes, exactly.
Good.
Okay, so if we're at the point where people understand how to evaluate their ideas, then how do and I don't believe people have a problem getting ideas. I think they're just constantly bombarded with them, but they're bombarded with the wrong ones. So I think most people are bombarded with ideas because they were sitting on the toilet this morning, flipping through TikTok or Instagram, and they got a bunch of ideas. So those they were put in by the wrong source. So I am a huge believer in unplugging. I'm a huge believer in going into what I call the silence, and I'm sure I didn't make that up, but I find ways of being quiet. Which has to be man-made in my life because my brain is never just quiet. I'm sitting in front of a computer. I'm talking with people. I'm in meetings. Whatever it is, I am thinking at all times, unless I make time to sit outside and look at the water or walk on the beach or meditate or pray or whatever it is that I need to do to be quiet, including ride the bike, like ride my stationary bike and just be numb and allow my body to do a bunch of things without my brain being focused on something else, because then my brain works better. Another thing that I love to do is take a vacation once a year all by myself, and I go hiking. And long, exhaustive hikes allow me to have, tap in and have better ideas. So how do people do it? How do you do it?
So I'm similar, and I'll take one of my cars, and like during COVID, I drove all over the United States because the highways were empty. Even the cops were home, and I was driving 120 miles an hour highways all over the U.S. with windshield time. But I think and you're asking how I do it. I'm not going to project my faith onto anybody, but I will tell you that this part of it is faith to me. Is that there's this, I don't know, I'm going to say something you're going to think, oh, well, I know a million Bible verses. I don't, but I know a few that matter to me. And in First John, he says, before this was the Word, and I am the Word, and the Word was with me. So what my experience of that is that we're living in a movie that's already completed, and all the ideas are done, all the businesses are already made, and all the movies and books have all been written, and all the lives have been lived. So within the context of that, my experience has been when I sit down to write a screenplay or a movie or a book, I'm not writing it. I'm scribing it, and I'm seeing it, and I'm writing down what I'm seeing, and it's being given to me. It's in a state of flow, and it's not even my movie. It's the movie that's supposed to be made because it's already been made. Same with the book. I think the same is with the business. I also think one of the rules of the universe that is pretty well laid out for us is that prayer matters, and that actual prayer is out loud. When Jesus says the Lord's Prayer, he says it out loud because God doesn't want the content of our head. And we tend to think, oh, God's reading my thoughts. And like, that's the last thing God wants to be doing, is listening to your muddy thoughts, because that is a zoo up there of crime and disgust. So, but when you say out loud, it connects the heart to the mind. And if the heart's running the mind through God, then the mind clears up, and I get an idea and I go pray about it. And I go, should I do this, and how should I do this? And I hear an answer. And the answer is, does that sound like something I would come up with? No. Okay, so that's something you came up with. Well, is it something I should do? Does it sound like I agree that you should do it? No. Then I won't do it. Or, well, I believe that that might have potential. Really, it's got potential. And with those, the phone rings, like all of these external indicators come to me suddenly of, oh, I've tapped into something real here. He wants me to work on this. Those are the things that always succeed. They always involve other people that I didn't previously know, and they're frankly effortless. All of the things in my life that have been successful, that I've made money with or have grown, came out of the blue and took very little effort. I came up with the GoPro marketing program. I wrote it in a day. It was a 30-page infomercial I wrote in one day in my bed. I didn't go to the office. I sent it to Nick Woodman at GoPro that night. He texted me at 3 a.m. and said, because that's kind of the hours he worked, I want to call you in the morning. He calls me at 8 a.m. and he says, I don't want to do this infomercial. Now that you've written it, I appreciate it, but I want to do short forms. And I said, that's great. Take the staple out of the infomercial because it's 30 short forms stitched together. And he goes, you son of a bitch. And that was the offer was there, the be a hero, the every day we give away a full suite of our products for free. The idea that Facebook and YouTube people would make their own commercials and we would give them access to music and stuff. Like the whole thing was done in a day.
Wow.
It wasn't done in 6 months or a year. Like it wasn't a slog. It was just like, this is how we should do it. And it worked. And that's how the $600,000 turned into $600 million a year. It was not a slog. And he never tapped into his full capital. I think we had a line of credit of $6 million and he only tapped into 2.5 or 3 to make the thing actually happen.
So I struggle with this sometimes, which means all the time.
You know, we struggle all the time.
Which is,
Here's our state.
you know, I think that, well, I shouldn't say. I was going to say I think a lot of people fall into this category. I have no idea. I like to think I'm not alone because it makes me feel a little more sane. But most of the time, I go back to my roots, and my roots are staying up late, watching late night infomercials on how to be successful, and then I don't know if you know this about me, but I went from the health field. I was in the health club industry, and then a bunch of health books, and to then speaking on stages all over the globe. And the very first stages that I was speaking on were personal development stages. I was being asked by friends who were in that industry, who were back then some of the biggest names. Now, many of them are passed away, but they were amazing, amazing mentors of mine. And then I was a mentor to them to business growth. But I was speaking in personal development field and then speaking in the business field. And both of those fields teach you go, 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 like push, like get an idea and then put your head down, your blinders on, and charge forward, which I still use that analogy today. So the struggle that I have internally is you either release everything, you pray about it, you release everything, and you just say, I didn't write this script, you did, right? So, or you say, hey, you didn't put me here to be a doll. You don't want to pull strings. You put blessings in my path. You put great people in my life. You put great opportunities in my life. I need to wake up, have my cup of coffee, and charge forward. Just make sure I'm going in the right direction, please. So it's a struggle sometimes to say, am I pressing the gas or should I not be pressing the gas?
I hear you. And I guess my observation after all of these cycles and all these different businesses is, the things that work usually work pretty easily. And that's got me to the place of going, the wise approach is first internally going, this needs to be done, not necessarily I need to be the one that does it. Like the world deserves this, this should be in the world. That opens me up to enroll other people of going, don't you think this should be in the world? And I don't generally say, I'm going to hire you to do this. I meet the person and go, how would you like to contribute? And get them to sign up for the end goal and sign up for all of the incremental things that their integrity will be held to along the way. And then even the financial component of how would you like to be compensated for this? And then decide if that makes sense. But I think when you go to, I must be the one that makes this happen, that's kind of the recipe for failure because there's ego attached to that. And
yes,
if I go, the world deserves to have this occur, then I go, okay, we're probably on a pretty good footing. Because does the world need it? Yeah, it actually does. All right, well then I'm going to get some collaboration and we're going to make this happen.
Yeah, there's a lot in that, and I'm very good at convincing myself that the world needs things. Like I
Do your
sell myself
collaborators
on
agree?
many
Or did you
things.
pay them to agree?
I might have paid people to agree sometimes. To make me feel good and so I could sleep at nighttime.
That's
And not in a bad way. Again, none of this is in a bad way. This is all building honest, ethical, moral, legal companies that I truly believe are helping many, many, many people in great ways. Just, is this the right thing? And should I be pushing as hard as I push?
Yeah, I get it. There's another piece of this that we haven't really talked about too, which is the Da Vinci piece, which is I have expertise in this area, but I should get expertise in multiple areas. Your phone your iPhone is not a phone any longer because you use it as a compass and a map and a recording device and and our camera. It's like it's if it doesn't do what we want it to do, we just get another app. But we tend to think with ourselves, well, I'm all apped out with myself because I understand numbers and that's my thing, or I understand creative and that's my thing. And Da Vinci wasn't that. Imagine what his neighbors felt like. He's got dead bodies in the yard. He's pulling, like he's doing anatomy and he's figuring from anatomy how engineering works and how to build birds and airplanes. And I bet he was a good cook. Like you have to expand and grow and read and learn in other disciplines always to become better at your core discipline, because you're going to find something that you can drag from the other discipline into yours. And one of the challenges of, and I see this in, and I won't name any companies, but I often get inserted into a company when the new CEO comes or the new CMO, and they bring me with, and they're like, I'm going to fix this place. This place is, and you have to temper that. And I can do that myself. Like I know how this has got to be, that you got to temper that and go, this is all an experiment. I got to detach my ego from it. Because if I go into the mindset of experimentation, then there can be multiple experiments. And then I have a higher probability of detachment from outcome, which leads to better outcome. And that's growth. The plant doesn't say, I must grow this way. The wind blows this way. And so all the trees at Torrey Pines go that way because the wind's been blowing that way, right? It's you have to be environmentally adaptive. You have to have some flexibility. You have to have more learning all the time. And that's one of the things that I think that keeps me young and excited. And as because I'm not young, I'm getting old, but I'm constantly engrossing myself in learning things that I don't know. I didn't know anything about agriculture 4 years ago, and I bought this piece of property out in the middle of nowhere. Now I'm a freaking antelope and oryx expert, and I know how to trim shrubs to build blinds and feed these animals and care for them and stuff. And I decided to do that at 56. I'm more of a cooking guy who understands German sports cars and skiing. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to learn agriculture. And I love it.
I have to talk about two things that you were talking about. It's I find every single time you and I sit down and talk, I find that our conversations, I've got something I want to ask, and you're 5 thoughts down the road because your stories go so well together. And then at the end, I'm like, damn, what was that? That one thing, it was so important a couple of seconds ago. Now it's not important. But two quick things. First, uh, um, in each one of my offices, I have a plaque that says, what's the best use of my time? And right now, what's the best use of my time right now? And we have that, my team has that. We have that on our internal memos. And it's just to remind people to take a breath, to stop focusing on the 12 plates that they have spinning, that they think if one plate drops, everything is down. But there's one thing at all times. There's one thing that it's the best use of your time right now. And if we don't constantly remind ourselves that, it's important that you do. So at least in my companies. So we have that plaque. So as you were talking, there's nothing else that I have other than, memorabilia from my kids when they were young and stuff like that. There's very few things that I have in every office or in every place that I do work. There is going to be one more thing after what you just said. It's a picture of a bent tree, which I used to have on one of my computers. It was in Aruba. Those trees that grow like this because the wind is constantly coming this way off of the water. And I'm going to do that specifically to remind myself to stop, to always take a step back and make sure that I'm on the right path and I'm not fighting to be on a path that maybe I shouldn't be on. I think that's going to be important. But the other thing I want to say is, you said it's real important when you are just for life in general, to be able to think outside the box, to have these ideas. It's very, very important to read things or to absorb information that's outside of your current sphere, right? So not just business books, but philosophy books or weight loss or health books or whatever it is. Like to have a library, not just of books, but maybe of audios or podcasts, traveling more, having different conversations outside of your norm. I think that's vital. Um, and I get a lot of that new stuff in my life by traveling, by experiencing different cultures, by trying different food, by doing a lot of these different things. The majority of it, and we actually started talking about this before we started recording, and I shared with you the fact that, I'm not tapped in to a lot of the stuff that's happening in this world, except through two different places. My friends and my daughter. Like my daughter keeps me up to date on everything political, and I don't know why, but somehow her feed on her social media is all political. So she talks to me. We text about this all day. It's hysterical how our conversations go in that direction. But my friends also, I have a very small group of very core friends that I've known for 20 plus years, and we get together on a regular basis. And they're all in different industries, and they all are different parts of their life. One of them is a grandfather, one of them is about to be a grandfather, and then there's younger people, and then there's people who love high-end sports. There's people who love sitting on the beach. There's family people. There's people who are not family. I mean, it's such a diverse group of conversations that I find always makes me feel more relaxed when I've sat down and hung out with them, because instead of focusing on the things that keep me inside of my bubble at all times, they force me to just relax and think and remind me that there's so many other things. And that those conversations trigger ideas and different ways of handling things in my life and my business everywhere that make things much easier for me.
I think that is its core, and it's beautiful to one relaxation expansion at the same time. It's you can't breathe if you can't move. It's like it's part of that kind of a dynamic. The other thing that I think we should all be very acutely aware of is the good fortune of being born at this moment. Being
Yes.
alive at this, you could have been alive at a lot of times in history, but if you put a pin on the map of when would you like to be alive, I would go, right after the Kennedy assassination through AI. I'd kind of like that. Looks like a pretty good window of an awful lot of growth and change on the planet. And it harkens me back to the Dark Ages went on for 900 years. And then in the midst of the 15th century, in the 1400s, this whole explosion happened worldwide. It's like the sky ripped open and God gave us these things in the Da Vinci time, which was a magnetized compass, shipbuilding, print, the Gutenberg printing press, um, double entry banking. All these really, if you just go look at what are the things between 1450 and 1500 or 1520, all of these things came into being around the world that allowed the next 500 years to happen without anything else really new. They drove exploration and building, and that kind of stopped until the late 1800s. And I mean, even gunpowder was a 1440 thing. And then we get to the 1800s and the late 1800s, and we get industrialization and machineries and cotton gins and factories and the internal combustion engine. And we had this explosion then. And now we're having another one. And the first one was 400 years apart, then 100 years, and now we're into this AI. And I go, we all have a tremendous opportunity right now for humanity to go, if we have these tools, how will we ensure that our people going forward, our kids and our grandkids, will have a world where they can learn for free because they should. They can learn crafts that they'll be fulfilled by in a society that they will love because we have these tools instead of the fear of all of the tools and going, what can I do with AI to string some things together that have never been strung together that will always require a human creator behind it.
Powerful.
That's where the opportunity, because that's identity. That's $1 billion idea of, hey, we're going to bring these technologies together, and it will always require some human to think irrationally, because that's what we're good at. Is a good movie isn't written what would happen next. A good movie is what wouldn't happen next. The weird plot point. And we
Yeah.
are the weird plot point. So how do we create things that ensure that humanity gets to thrive in creativity instead of captivity?
That's mind numbing.
Well, we're capable of that.
Yeah.
It's a charge. We have to stand up and go, okay, either we're going to be captured or we're going to captivate.
Hey, Ron, there's a question that I've heard you asked. I don't remember how it goes, but I'm gonna see if you remember it as we go through this. And I believe the point of the question was to help you determine. I hate to say it this way because I don't want to offend anybody. Help you determine quality of the person that you're talking with, or what their focus is. If they're a good person, if they're focused on good things, if they're not focused on good things, if they're a good fit for you, maybe that's the nicest way to say it. And it was something about the most important people in your life.
Yeah.
Do you know what this is?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. In fact, I have a 5-page document on it that I'd be happy to send anybody who's listening to this. It's called The Interview. I learned it from one of my first mentors. And he built a multi-million dollar insurance practice off of this. And it builds rapport fast, but you find out who you're dealing with, because who you're dealing with is always the most important piece. And it's, who are 3 people you strongly admire, living or dead? You do not need to know them. So you can pick Mark Twain, but you can't pick Huckleberry Finn. 3 people, living or dead, that you strongly admire. And the person will start to hopefully name those people. And some people pick their dad or relatives, or Da Vinci or whoever. And then you go, great, I got the people, and they might start to elaborate on why. And you're not really interested on their why, because they're going to probably start giving you their CV. You go, okay, what are the character traits that made them immediately come to your mind? Oh, they're hardworking. And sometimes you have to define character traits for people because they don't always know what that means. They're diligent. They're loving. They're thoughtful. They're articulate. They're whatever those are. By the time they've got through those 9 character traits total of the 3 people, you have an idea of who you're talking to. It's very hard to meet somebody and have them. It's hard for us to say, I'm a really great guy and this are the great things about me. Nobody wants to do that. No one wants to hear that. But if I ask you through the vehicle of who you admire, suddenly you're giving me the most important things that you are constantly aspiring to be. And you've also made a social contract to be that person as we move forward. And I'm happy to tell you what mine are. And I'll ask them conversely, can you think of a person, and you don't have to tell me their name, that you have contempt for? That if we were having lunch and they came and sat at the table, you'd be, 1, a little surprised that I knew them, and 2, you'd offer to pay the bill and leave because you just couldn't be in their presence. And then what are those 3 traits of that person? Now people hear that and then they get, I don't expose what this interview is until I'm complete with it. And then they go, they'll typically pick a politician or a celebrity or someone from their life who's been abusive. And they come up with the 3 traits. And sometimes they don't tell me who the person is. And then once you reveal, hey, this is how I get to know you, they get cautionary about, oh, well, I told you these 3 things. I'm not those 3 things. Like, I know that you're not egotistical and selfish and manipulative, but I know you have been. And you've been that person that after the party and the 3 glasses of wine, the next morning you looked in the mirror and said, why did I do that? I hate it when I'm that way. So it's not who you are, it's your guardrails of who you really don't want to be. And then I kind of know who you are, and I'm willing to tell you who I am. And then my two highest values are integrity and honesty, and I ask them to define those words. And integrity is I do what I say I'm going to do, and I don't do what I say I'm not going to do. And that is the underpinnings of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And the underpinnings of trust are the underpinnings of love. And this is why in our age we have so many people that have such issues with their parents. Because there's a lot of, I'll say, boomer parents that are aging out now, and their parents would say that they loved them, but their parents were part of the me generation that were so very self-focused. And a lot of these younger people, and by younger I mean 60 down to 45, 40, 35 now, were raised by people who the parents were really focused on themselves, and the kids were feral. We let ourselves in and out of the house and fed ourselves, and because the parents had to work two jobs because the nature of society changed in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so I think that knowing who you're sitting with and knowing real early and to walk away. There's 8 billion people on the planet. You don't have to be aligned with everybody you meet, but you should be aligned with everybody you do life with.
Who are your three people?
Jesus, for the table flipping Jesus, the principled Jesus, not the lamb petting Jesus, the principled, um, um, articulate, clever, wise. Da Vinci, because of the creativity and the curiosity and the desire for that connection. And then I typically pick a comedian. I like Eddie Izzard or Steve Martin or Stephen Wright. I like people that juxtapose things and take two things and connect them, because I like to be that for my audience, whether I'm writing a movie or a commercial or whatever. That the idea of, we like comedians take control of other people's brains and provide them with joy and creativity that makes them happy or inspires them or creates an emotive chemical reaction in their brain. Because I like people that do that for me. I like that experience. I like being happy. I like the moment of discovery. I like eurekas and laughter and wonder. I'm still a person that will drag you out of the building of our conference to look at an amazing sky at night. I'm like, this isn't important. You got to see this moon.
The
I'm
sunset.
still kind of a big 8-year-old.
I could see that part of you very clearly. Not during this podcast, but when the cameras are off.
Yeah, well,
You're doing very good being professional on this. Thank you.
as I think it was Frank Sinatra used to say, "Well, I've cleaned this up quite a bit for you."
I have a very good friend who does Frank Sinatra impersonation, and I had another friend who loved Frank Sinatra. So I called my buddy up, and I mean, he does this. He's a very well-known person. I call him up and I say, "Hey, I've got a friend. He loves Frank Sinatra." He goes, "What's his name?" And I told him his name. He goes, "Oh, I'm going to record something for him." And he recorded, I forget the name of the song, but he recorded one of Frank's famous songs and inserted the guy's name into it for me.
Well, that's great.
It was
That
wonderful.
fantastic.
Yeah. So it's a different time. Like that kind of music came from a more genuine time when there was less music. I'm sorry, less weird meanings sometimes woven through the music.
Right. Well, do you mind if I ask you, because I bet the folks that know you and would like to know who your three people are and those character traits?
Yeah. So Jesus would be number one on my list. Number two would be my father. And then number 3, this is very difficult to come up with 3, to narrow down to 3 people. But there is you remember a guy named Dennis Waitley, personal development guy? Yeah, he made a big impact on my life. And there's been a lot of personal development guys who have. And
Go into the whys now. What are the character traits of those people?
So the resolve that Jesus Christ showed has always been profound for me. To go through everything that he went through, knowing what was going to happen, like pre-knowing everything that was going to happen, and putting himself through that and doing it with such love and faithfulness. I think about that a lot. My father is the most patient man I've ever met in my entire life. We've joked. So he's 94 years old now. God bless him. I love him. He's my favorite human outside of my kids. But we've joked ever since I was a kid that I wasn't born with patience, and I definitely wasn't. Like, I was never a patient child. Still to this day, I really have had to work on patience. I believe I became a patient person after my son was born, and then a far more patient person after my daughter was born, right? And they're the ones who brought it out of me. Nobody teaches you patience, but they brought it out of me in a good way. Like, I wanted to be patient for them. My father is born with patience. Like, he's just such a wonderful, wonderful, patient person, extremely family focused, high integrity, very honest. I have so much love and respect for him. Dennis Waitley. Dennis and I were on stage several times together. And I remember we got off stage one time, and when you're speaking to a large auditorium of people and then you're done, you are swamped with people. Like, people, they're like a swarm of bees. They come, and by the way, I say that swarm of bees not in a bad way, but it is a good visual. Like, there's just, for all over you, no matter where you turn, people just want a couple of minutes of your time to talk with you and ask you questions, and it's wonderful, and it's freaking wonderful. I remember there was a break in the event. Dennis was on stage prior to the event, prior to the break. I was on stage prior to the event. We're both out in the lobby, big lobby. I'm talking to him. He's talking to me. Lines of people waiting to talk to both of us. He never broke eye contact with me once. People are just, hey, Dennis, just want to get one picture. Hey, you just want to get one. And I'm being very kind, I think. And I'm saying, oh, just 1 second. And going back to Dennis, he never broke eye contact with me one time. Totally. Then we're done. We part. His group stays with him. My group stays with me. Every once in a while, I look over at him, and no matter who he's talking with, he is glued to them, glued until it's done. He doesn't stop it. And then when it's done, they're done. They walk away. He just gave so much to every person. And I consistently, when I'm in team meetings now, when I'm in investor pitches right now, when I'm listening to people who just want a minute of my time, I try so hard to just do that. And I think about him every single time that happens. It's weird. It's just so anyway, those are the 3 people.
Yeah, and I think those are great examples of, and the character traits of who you are as well, because that is my experience of you.
Well,
so
you did a really good job of,
through that vehicle. You describe who you are, and it's hard for us even to have self-evaluate that way. But if you stand back and look at it, go, you know what, that is who I am, and I'm going to continue to be that. That's own it. It's a very
big compliment.
Thing. So, then there's been, particularly with that last one of presence, there's really successful politicians that you may or may not like are good at that. George Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama are all very good at that very thing. And people walk away from them saying, I really like, even if they're politically opposed to them, that's a learned gift that I'm probably guessing came from George Bush Sr. that he passed down to Bill Clinton and then his son, because they were all tight. And then,
and then he got it from the CIA.
Dick Cheney didn't get it from anybody. That people remember, and that's, you're talking about being seen. And when people come up to you at the end of a speech or a trade show, they don't want to come talk to you about you. They want to come talk to you about them. They want to tell you their ideas,
Yes,
their
every
experience.
time.
They want to be heard, and they want to give back, and they want to be seen by that person that they just gave attention and authority to validate their path. And they want to hear, well, I've been drinking from the fountain. Am I doing okay? Is really, could you give me a little nudge here? But the little nudge is really, you typically give me a pat on the back for where I'm going. 9 times out of 10. And I think that's the honorary price of being able to speak publicly. And it shows that you have class and that you do actually care and are compassionate for folks, that it's not just showboating.
I don't think it stops there. I think it is part of every single part of your life. Like, I talk to my leadership team about this on a regular basis, just because I need them to have this trait inside of them when they're talking to people inside of their departments. And it goes for the way you speak with your kids, the way you speak with your spouse, the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to your employees, your prospects in your marketing, your customers, everybody. Everybody needs to feel heard and safe. As soon as they don't feel heard or they don't feel safe, you lost them. Like, you lost them. Not only did you lose them, but all of those voices in the back of their head start going, and they're none of it's good about you. Like, there's this horrible voices telling them how bad you are because the last interaction with you, they didn't feel either heard or safe.
And the cell phone don't help.
No, that's the impetus for most bad things.
I mean, my kids are all adults, married, what have you. But even to this age, they're like, put that phone away, Dad. I'm like, you're right. I got it. I'm still learning that. I got to put that phone away, because I get hooked into the self-importance of all the bigwigs that need to talk to Uncle Ron. And it's like, not so much. They're not impressed by any of that, and it's not necessary.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that people are impressed with that your family is like, who cares? Because your dad.
But the good news is they still want to go bowling. So all of our kids live in the same town. So
Yeah.
we still have family nights where we go, hey, we want to sponsor something. Every time they say, let's just go bowling. There's no
That's
competition.
amazing.
There's just clowning around and joking, and we'll eat, and everybody's spouses come, and you can eat whatever you want at a bowling alley, and there's no,
I've been bowling
it's really fun.
in so long.
I'm terrible at it, but it's, and we're all terrible at it, but it's
that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, it's such a non-threatening thing, and in a good environment, there's going to be food, and you're going to be connecting with each other, because it's not really about the bowling. It's about the bullshitting you're doing as a family, which is it matters. And then, they come here for the holidays, and we have those meals and again, but if you forget why you're here, that's a problem.
Ron, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to say, I think what you just said was the perfect way to wrap this up, because we started with money, business, growth, personal stuff, family. Like, I'm going to get this completely wrong, but there's that one story, and I forget what the heck it is. You may remember it. That one story about the fisherman, and then the American who meets the fisherman, and the fisherman goes out there and he fishes.
Yeah, so builds a whole career around, so that if he can finally retire 80 years later to fish.
To do the exact same thing that he's doing. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to go into the story. I'm sure most people have heard it, or you could Google it. But it's amazing. But that's what we just did. And I'm grateful that we ended on family, faith, family. I mean, we did the whole circle today. And the reason why I'm grateful for that is because that's life. That's my entire life. There's nothing like, when people watch my videos, and we're talking about business. That's all we talk about. We talk about how to go from 7 to 8 figures, 8 to 9 figures. We talk about how to handle a competition, how to grow, how to scale, how to get funding, all these things that I have experience with. And they think that that's it. And that's not it. Like every once in a while, I'll go out there and I'll do a personal video. And I'm like, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing with my kids, or this is what I'm doing here or there. And the only time the whole thing comes out is when I sit and I talk with friends. And I think that's a mistake. I think that's got to come out more in what I put out there, because that's what makes this all work. That's why we do it. We're doing it to be like my favorite. If you ask me what my favorite memory is over the last 30 or 60 days, it's dinner with my kids. Like we had a big dinner not long ago where kids were here. The house smelled like food. It was just wonderful. That recharged me. That made everything worthwhile.
Yeah. And I don't think God put you here incomplete. He put you here complete. And the name of this game is you're being given a role in an eternal culture that happens after this finite life is over. So how are you going to appear in that eternal culture? I want to be welcome there. I want people to be glad to see me. Like, oh, I want to have done good in the world and contributed and been appreciative and had gratitude and interacted with as many people as possible is nice. And I would like to have a little fierce Jesus in me, that I knew when to stand up for myself and not be bullied or let other people be bullied. That I did it within the parameters of the laws of reasonable kindness and diligence. I appreciate the time. I appreciate you inviting me on. I hope it's been useful for you and for the folks that we've been talking for a while, the folks that have listened to this
long. Yeah. Ron, it's always wonderful talking with you. Like you drop gold and just keep rolling as if it's nothing. It's fun. So I really appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you shared. And how can people get in touch with you?
You can just find me online at Stage 22 Productions, or then I have a personal site, ronnielynch.com. That's more books and metaphysical stuff.
All right, brother. Thank you so very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day with your family.
I will. Thank you. See you, Chris.